Hi, and welcome to Basic Folk, where we have honest conversations with folk musicians on the bluegrass situation. It's Cindy Howes, and I host this podcast. Thank you so much for finding us today. Today on the podcast, we have legendary Irish musician Paul Brady, who has just released a ridiculously massive box set called The Archives. We'll talk about that and his whole career coming up in just a minute. Before we fully get into it, let's talk about ways to stay in touch here. The best way to do so is to sign up for our monthly newsletter. You can do that at the link in the show notes, or you can check out basicfolk.com and sign up for the link there. You can follow us on social media. There's a link in the show notes to that as well. We're at Basic Folk Pod on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And you can also make a contribution and financially support us, help us out, help pay for your Basic Folk listening. The link is in the show notes to make your contribution, or you can go to basicfolk.com/donate. It doesn't take a lot to make a difference. $5 a month. Really helpful. Okay, and thanks. All right. It is still summertime. Hope you are having a good summer. We are up north of Portland right now. We're in Maine. It's fabulous. Spending some time in the woods with the dog off leash, wearing her orange vest so that when she runs off into the woods, I can see her, because I do have the dog off the leash anxiety. But, it's helpful to be able to work through it real time. And the dog is good. She comes back. That's what I've been working on this summer. Okay, on to Paul Brady. Bob Dylan once called Paul Brady a secret hero and meant it as a compliment. The Irish songwriting legend has not been bothered by the fact that his profile has not risen as high as some of his peers. Starting off in the world of traditional Irish music, Brady spent some time in the hugely influential Irish group Planxty until they disbanded in 1975. After that, he and bandmate Andy Irvine recorded a record together of trad music. In 1981, he released an album of original songs titled Hard Station that was based on his experience of growing up during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. It was a huge left turn for him stylistically and in being so personal with his writing. After that, Brady's songwriting career took off. He has written songs for Bonnie Raitt, Santana, and Tina Turner, among many others. In our conversation, he reflects on his upbringing and how music served as a reliable companion growing up. He also discusses his parents' artistic influences, particularly his father's passion for acting and how it shaped his own stage performances. We touch on themes of perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and the inherent pressures of the music industry. Additionally, Paul talks about his latest massive box set, The Archive, which features rare demos, live recordings, and unique collaborations, offering a comprehensive look at his extensive body of work. We'll take a listen to a track that is available on The Archive. This is a live version of his song Wheel of Heartbreak, and then we'll get to our conversation with Paul Brady on Basic Folk.
Who can keep a moonbeam from dancing on the floor? Who can hold a feeling till it's morning? And who can stop a lover from loving you no more? How much do we have to keep on learning? So much waiting, so much waiting, so much waiting.
Paul Brady. I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been like feeling butterflies all day. I'm so pumped. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very pleased, yeah.
So just a little bit about me. I'm sort of grew up in like the Boston folk scene, and I got to see you perform one time at Club Passim, and Brian O'Donovan was coordinating that show, and he was a pal of mine.
Right.
And we miss him dearly.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Great man.
Yeah, really great. Apologize if I mispronounce the name of your hometown. Let me try it out. Strabane.
Strabane, yeah.
We did it right. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have heard you talk about being shy and feeling like a second-class citizen growing up Catholic in Strabane, a Northern Ireland border town. This was during the Troubles, and you said music was my friend. It never talked back. It never bullied me. What did music and its companionship mean to you growing up, and how do you relate to that now?
Well, it wasn't just during the Troubles that discrimination was felt widely in Northern Ireland. I mean, ever since I was born, which is in the late 40s, definitely we knew we were living in a state that wasn't designed for us. So that lasted, yeah, and to a large degree has kind of gone now, but it's still a bit there. Music to me, I was very into music from a very early age. My mother boasts that when I was 18 months old, I sang the melody to a song called Now Is the Hour, which was an anglicised version, apparently, of an old Maori New Zealand song, which was a big hit at the time in the UK. So music was with me from ever, and it was the most reliable thing to me in the world, because I kind of had a architectural knowledge, instinct of what music was. It was like I knew where everything was in the building, and any music I heard coming at me, I was able to put into my musical building in a way that made sense to me. And, I was just musical from day one.
Your parents were both teachers and, as you were saying, really into music. Your dad was an actor on the side, but it was his passion, and he was a natural at it.
Yeah.
And you weren't necessarily a natural actor. And I heard that over the course of your career, there would be times where you would try to emulate him. So how have you seen his influence in your stage performances throughout your career?
Well, a lot of the songs I write involve personages and people who are communicating with each other within the song. So it was almost like a little drama. Each song that I wrote, when I performed it, it was like a little short drama. And I always performed the song almost as an actor as well as a singer. And that basically was total influence from my father. I just loved the way he became someone else when he stood up in front of people. And I suppose that's what I've always aspired to do too, to be kind of larger than life in a way.
Yes, I do have a question about the beast later on in the interview. It seems like when you were first learning music, you were talking about this earlier, you had a voracious appetite and a natural talent for music, but you also, in turn, had a very good work ethic and held yourself to a very high standard when it came to performance.
Yeah.
I think from what I've discovered. But where did that work ethic and high standard come from? And then where are those attributes in you today?
Well, I mean, I always believe if you're going to do something, do it right, and that was the same as regarding performance for me. I always felt a performance was a kind of an entity outside of myself, and I was sort of being the conduit for whatever was coming through that I had informed by the song I had just written. And I just felt that if I'm up in front of people, I just want to be as good as I can be, as I suppose. And that puts pressure on you. Like, I am probably a bit of a perfectionist, and that is something which takes a lot of energy away from other things.
It's so funny to learn that you sometimes suffer from imposter syndrome, and then to hear that you are a bit of a perfectionist. But like, it's like, I'm a highly anxious person, but I'm like a chill anxious person. So like, people cannot tell.
Yeah.
So when you're telling me that you're a perfectionist and I read that you have imposter syndrome from time to time, it's like almost kind of unbelievable because of how natural you make it seem and how effortless it seems from the outside world.
Well, that explains it exactly. Because it's effortless to me, it's hard for me to hugely value it. So therefore I go ahead thinking that if this is just what I feel about it, I'm not expecting anybody else to feel any better about it. So that's
right.
That's probably where the imposter syndrome originates.
Yeah. You got to appreciate your bass line, Paul.
Yeah, well, as I get older, I do. I'm, to be honest, at the moment, I don't really feel I'm even in the music business. I do what I want to do when I want. I say no more often now than I ever did, and I'm more and more content with what it is that I was and I have become and what I've produced. I don't go around singing from the rooftops about it, but I now kind of feel that, I did something,
Yeah. Well, speaking of singing, your singing voice is one of my favorites. How did your singing style evolve? Like, who were some vocalists that inspired you, and how have you come to relate to your voice? Talking about bass line here.
Well, my first outings with my voice, such as it was then as a teenager in my early 20s at college, I was like trying to emulate other singers like Ray Charles, like Randy Newman, like Tina Turner even, And I was into soul music in a big way in the late 60s, 70s. And I was very much aware of Irish traditional music because if you grow up in Ireland as a musician, you can't avoid it. It's everywhere. But it seemed to me to be something that wasn't part of my passion at the time in the mid 60s. I was more into rock and roll and pop music. And I'm very pleased about that because I built up a playing repertoire and a singing style repertoire, which stood me in good stead later in my career when I fell in love again with Irish music, and I began to just be fascinated by the whole art of singing, and it's the stylized nature of singing. The sound of a voice as it sings through different traditional disciplines. And I began to really just enjoy having fun with, on one song, singing in a certain way, and then on the next song, singing in a completely different way, stylistically and physically and emotionally. So it's always been a very fertile ground for me, singing. And, I suppose fundamentally, although, I've written a lot of songs and all that, I fundamentally, I think I'm just a singer,
Yeah. Okay, let me get this straight. You are left-handed, but you play guitar right-handed. You taught yourself guitar when you were 11, so you play and you write right-handed, although you kick a football or a soccer ball here in the States with your left foot.
Yeah.
Which is fun fact. But, what challenges or even like amusing things have you come across because of that ambidextrousness? That's not a word.
Well, I'm not sure about the upsides of it at all. You know, I mean, I ended up, I was forcibly changed as there was a paranoia in Britain and Ireland in the early 50s about kids who were left-handed, that they were going to be disadvantaged in later life. Can you believe it? It's not that long ago.
Yeah.
And
my mom is left-handed, and she went through the same thing, except she remained left-handed.
I mean, the prejudice against left-handed people is amazing. I mean, if you go back to the Latin word sinistra, it means the left hand, the sinistra, and that came into English as sinister, you know?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
People with left-handed, you got to watch them. So I was changed around about the age of 10 or 11, and I found that very difficult because I was very into art at the time, and I never quite knew which hand to employ when I was painting and drawing. And yeah, it also meant that I taught myself guitar. My brain said I was left-handed, but my hands were saying I was right-handed. So I ended up developing a style of playing guitar which was totally weird and individual, I have to say, and unusual, which I think has contributed in some way to the sound that I make when I play guitar. And I just have put up with that, you know. I've accepted it.
Yeah. So we were talking about traditional Irish music, and at one point you became really well known for your interpretation of that type of music, which you said was always in the background growing up.
Yeah.
And then as a teen, thanks to the Planxty brothers, you became more aware. After going to college, playing in some bands, you turned to traditional music, playing with the Johnstons, Planxty, and your duo with Andy Irvine.
Yeah.
So performing all these Irish songs that you didn't write, what did that teach you about crawling inside of someone else's experience? What did it teach you about being Irish?
Well,
two different questions.
Right. Well, I mean, it was a total volte-face for me, you know, a turnabout. When we're talking 1967 now, when I was asked to join a folk group, which was famous in Ireland, and I had just come on the back of a number one hit with a Ewan MacColl song, The Travelling People. And so I probably wasn't hugely into traditional music at the time. And I will confess that I joined the Johnstons more as a career move rather than a musical direction change in the beginning. But before long, when I was in the group, I fell under the spell of that whole other form of music, our own traditional music. And bit by bit, it began to completely dominate me. And I put my whole rock and pop and blues thing to the side for the whole decade, basically, of the 70s. And that was a very hugely enjoyable thing to me. As I said earlier, that I found my voice there, my own voice, singing our own songs, the traditional songs. And what I liked about them was they were stories and full of characters. And as I said earlier, it allowed me to act them out as dramatic events, the songs. And I mean, this was an era where a lot of people got up and sang 15-verse songs, really deadpan, without any kind of obviously emotional input from them. It was all like very just, let's get it out there. I always felt that the songs were bigger than that they were more exciting than that, and they needed a bit of drama in the delivery of them. So rightly or wrongly, that's the route I took in terms of how I related to those songs, and it found a whole other voice for me.
After hearing Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street, you were inspired to write your own songs that would eventually become Hard Station, which came out in 1981. That record was released when you were 34 years old. One major source of inspiration was your childhood growing up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. What was it like to revisit that experience as somebody in their 30s? And how did it helped you process any leftover feelings?
Oh, well, I kind of, when I left Northern Ireland, I kind of knew I would never ever live there again, because I couldn't put up with the atmosphere that pertained in that area, where you never knew who you were talking to, and there was kind of reticence and suspicion all the time, and it was just not a place I really felt I wanted to spend the rest of my life in. So I moved to Dublin, and of course then with the Johnsons, I spent 3 years in London and a couple of years in America, and I'm not sure where we got into this particular piece. Well, if you can just alert me to what
was it like when the inspiration for Hard Station? What was it like to revisit that experience that you had as a child when you were in your 30s as an adult? Well,
Hard Station was me coming back to the music that I'd left for the whole 70s, and it was a kind of an immediate conversion, as you said, when I heard Gerry Rafferty singing Baker Street. I mean, I knew Gerry Rafferty. Gerry Rafferty, at the time I went to London with the Johnsons, was in a group with Billy Connolly and Tom Harvey called the Humble Bums. And they were on the same label as us, Transatlantic Records. So I knew Gerry as a folk singer, and I knew he was starting to write songs. And our paths would have crossed at the Cambridge Folk Festival and various places in Scotland. A few sessions late at night where he played acoustic songs, and but I was totally unprepared for hearing Baker Street, and immediately I kind of felt, this is what I want to do. I want to write songs myself, and the only way I could approach that was in a way to cut off where I had been for the previous decade, and because I didn't know how to write songs. I mean, I'd tried a few earlier in the 70s when I was still with the Johnsons, but they were kind of songs that I didn't feel I could stand up behind 10 years later. So I was new to songwriting in 1979, 80. Mm-hmm. I knew I had a long way to go before I could, enter the Gerry Rafferty room. So I was in a hurry. I was in a hurry, and I knew that I just had to walk away from trad music till I figured out what else was inside me and how to get it out,
Yeah. So could you go a little bit into what that was like? Because you were hardcore into Irish music. You started writing songs in 1978, and then Hard Station came out in 1981, which is not that many years in between. So what did you do to get your head out of that trad space, like figure out what was happening in popular music and then develop your own style very quickly?
It was a bit of it was difficult, because by the end of the 70s, I was a solo performer. I put out Welcome Here, Kind Stranger in 1978. And I was quite a popular solo performer in the Ireland of the time and making a reasonably good living. But when I stopped performing in the traditional world, I mean, all that living standard disappeared, and I found myself, for 2 or 3 years, finding it tough enough to get by financially. But I knew I had to do it because, there came a time at the end of the 70s, particularly just when I finished the Welcome Here, Kind Stranger album, I knew I was never going to be a virtuoso traditional musician, and I was always going to be, sort of just have enough chops to support my voice. And I kind of felt in a way that if I moved away from traditional music, I wouldn't be leaving it forever, that I just had to put it on the back burner. And as I said earlier, see what else existed inside me. So it wasn't hard to do at the time, but it had consequences, which took a couple of years. I mean, it wasn't really until 82, 83 again that I began to, make a good living as a musician. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, those kinds of consequences.
Oh yeah. And that came at a time we had our first child, Sarah, in 1977, and our son Colin in 1979. So I was at the coalface there too,
Yeah. Perfect time for a career change.
Exactly.
How do you think being so deep into Irish traditional music impacted the type of writer and musician that you've become?
Well, yeah, I mean, I brought with me from traditional music a love of melody. I mean, Irish traditional songs are just all about melodies. They're one-line melodies, stupendously beautiful in many ways. I wanted I wanted to write good, strong melodies that were memorable. And I also wanted to write lyrics that to me were real about what was happening to me and what was happening in the Ireland of the time. And that would have been another direct line down from what traditional songs were mostly about in the former days, kind of bringing news from parish to parish, stories. So I wanted my songs to be stories, and I wanted them to be strong melodies. And not that I eschewed rhythm or anything, because I love rhythm, but certainly melody came from folk music into my songwriting.
You've called yourself politically non-aligned. How do you feel about political writing, either from others or from yourself? Like, what value do you see in political songwriting?
Well, I mean, I have nothing against people who are political songwriters, but I suppose my position stems from a part of my nature, which is a propensity to see all points of view all the time, and that's not a way to be a politician. To be a politician, you need to pick on one thing and drive it home. And I mean, I would constantly see people in the public eye, in the political arena, saying things, and I would end up saying, "Yeah, but what about?" And so, like, I was. That's when I say non-aligned. I've always been suspicious of certainty. And, and I've always been able to see everybody's point of view. And I mean, I'm not suggesting that that's the best way to live one's life, but I kind of have accepted that that's the sort of beast I am,
Here we go with the beast again. I have a question about The Island, which is a song that does not appear on the archive. You wrote The Island criticizing the armed struggle during the Troubles. It was released in 1986, and it was not the cool thing to do at the time to release a song like that. You were chastised and even attacked. How have you reflected on the message of that song since its release?
Well, the funny thing is that there's nothing the song is saying the modern Sinn Féin political party here would disagree with now. It's just like back then, 30 years ago or whatever it is. How many years ago was it? 50 years ago. It was a different scenario, a different world altogether. And
1986?
Yeah.
It's not 50 years ago. It's almost 40.
Almost 40.
39 years ago.
All right.
I was born in 82, so not quite 50.
I was wary of the big statement from the podium, and I always saw it from the individual's point of view, and I'm very reluctant to paraphrase The Island because it's such a complex song, even to me. I mean, I don't know how I wrote it, but it certainly it's complex, as the problem was extremely complex. I suppose the simplest way to say it is that I've always believed that change happens from the inside out, and rather than the outside in. And I just felt that, if we could change the way we related to each other on an individual level, it would make a huge difference in the world. And rather than big gross sweeps of the pen from the podium, that's just my point of view. And as I said, I don't like to paraphrase the island. It took me by surprise and still does, to be honest.
Powerful song. As an Irish musician who's found popularity in the United States and beyond, how responsible do you feel in representing Northern Ireland and Ireland's history and what it means to be Irish?
Well, it doesn't sit on me back like a heavy weight, but I do see all around me in Ireland a huge amount of great music, not all of which gets its fair time, in the public's eye. But I think we're a musical people, and I think that we have a strong individual stamp to the style of music we make, and I'm proud of that, and I'm proud to be part of it. And it's nice when people outside Ireland get it, because I think the Irish view on it is something you have to get. It's not the same as the American view on things musically. It's a whole different animal altogether. I nearly said beast. It's a whole other animal altogether, and it's its own thing. And I'm happy to be in amongst it.
We should do like a Marx Brothers secret word on Basic Folk during interviews. Have people guess what the secret word is. Obviously, this interview would be beast. You've had many other high-profile artists cover your songs. Bonnie Raitt, Santana, Tina Turner was a big one for you when she recorded your song Steel Claw on her album Private Dancer.
Yeah. She
went on to cover Paradise Is Here, which you said that's a song that expresses my feminine side, so it was a good fit for Tina. So How does songwriting, and you weren't specifically writing Paradise Is Here for a woman, but in terms of thinking about the women's perspective, writing songs, thinking about maybe a woman would record this song, how does that help you understand your feminine side?
Well, dear, oh dear, that's a hard question. Well, I'd start off by saying I've only once ever in about 300 songs written a song to commission. And in that case, the artist didn't record it. So I never write songs for people. I always write songs for myself and as an expression of who I am at the moment I'm writing, or who I am in my memory of who I might have been or who I might aspire to be in the future or whatever. So all the covers I've had have been accidental largely. The Tina Turner thing happened by accident when her manager, Roger Davies, her manager at the time, who took her from obscurity, which she had sung to in the 70s, and decided he was going to, herald her comeback. He was looking for songs for her first album, and he approached my manager at the time, Ed Bicknell, who was managing Dire Straits at the time, and asked, did he have any, would Mark Knopfler have any songs that might suit Tina? As it turned out, he did, the song Private Dancer, which became the title track of the album. But Roger asked Ed, he says, do you have any other artists? And Ed says, yes, I have this Irish singer-songwriter, Paul Brady, and he's written a lot of songs, and, he's possibly got a song that would suit Tina. So that's how that happened. And that might never have happened if Ed and had not had dinner, that night. So, it's a huge honor when anybody else wants to record your song. It's a huge validation of your song, and by extension, your sorry self, and and so it's always a bit of a shot in the arm. Yeah, I mean, and it didn't hurt, career-wise in terms of, I had an awful lot of covers from major artists at a time when there was still some money in the publishing world,
Hell yes.
So I was lucky.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful but I'm also encouraged and made a little more confident by the fact that so many people have related to nonsense I've written about and liked what I've had to say for myself. It's made me feel a little bit more confident in the world.
Yeah. Well, this is a question that's kind of on that same vein. It's a little bit of a setup, so settle in here. Bob Dylan famously called you a secret hero. So here's an abridged version if people don't know the quote from Dylan. He says, "People get too famous too fast these days and it destroys them." He name checks you, Tom Waits, Leonard Cohen, and others at guys who got it down, which is like cool to be name checked by Bob Dylan, but then it's like basically a backhanded compliment. And you've said of the topic, "It had never particularly bothered me that I wasn't getting the same attention from the media because that comes with its downsides. I didn't get the downside of it, but I was always delighted to be included with my fellow peers," which you were just speaking to. How did you come to that conclusion? When did it start feeling better to hold company amongst your musical comrades versus getting the fame, getting the fortune?
Well, I never liked the fame aspect of it, to be honest. I mean, it's nice to be recognized and when I go out in Ireland, I went to see Bonnie Raitt last night in town, and, of course I was recognized, by lots of people at the gig because I'm well known in Ireland, and that's nice, but that's a sort of a one-on-one, peer thing. The whole media of promotion was something that scared the life out of me, and I just never felt I could meet up with the demands that were thrown at me. I mean, when I was with major record labels, it was always, how are we going to get Paul onto daytime radio? How are we going to get him a hit? How are we going to get this? Can somebody clean him up? Blah, 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 I mean, I just hated all that shit, but it came with the territory, in many instances, if you didn't have that attention, you didn't make a good living. So I had to balance these things all through my career. I just go close enough to the maw of the promotion animal to try and make them feel that I wasn't sort of being holding back and frustrating them. And then I would pull away as soon as I felt I was getting in trouble, I just never felt comfortable in the world, in the front line of fame, because I felt it was just, I like to say I never fell out of fashion because I was never in fashion.
Man. How was Bonnie last night?
She was stunning. That was her second night in Dublin. And she was there. She came in about a week before the shows and we hung for a while, and she's singing better than ever, and the band is stonking, It was just two great shows. And so she's off to England tomorrow and then over to Europe. And it's great to see her still strutting her stuff.
Yeah, that's very cool. So your latest is this huge collection called The Archive. And it came about thanks to working with Malcolm Mills of The Last Music Company, which is a record label in England.
Yeah.
You said he likes dealing with artists like me whose music he enjoys, but haven't been famous enough to like the average man on the street, unless you're in Ireland.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, Paul, you have come across all kinds in the music industry. But what does it mean to work with people like Malcolm who value your talents and gifts over your massive amounts of fame? And how hard is it to find those people?
Well, pretty much everything that's happened in my career has happened by accident. The people I've met that have been instrumental in lifting me up have always been accidental. And so it was with Malcolm. He approached me 2 or 3 years ago, just, to say that he was setting up his own label and he was interested in artists who he felt their music had value, but that weren't, like, if you like, at the forefront of the public's imagination all the time. And he started to take over my catalog, and he came up with the idea of the archive. And I mean, I had just released a book, an autobiography called Crazy Dreams in 2022. And he had read that, and in a way that had cemented his notion that I might be an artist that he would like to work with. And so we met loads of times, and it took about a year to put the archive together. And it was a great pleasure to do it, because I found myself gravitating towards an awful lot of stuff that the first home demos of songs that later became very well known in a professionally recorded sense. But when I heard them initially, back when I wrote the song, I kind of thought, well, that demo's very crude, and nobody's going to want to listen to that, and I have to go and re-record it for real. When I started in the archive, I began to find all these old demos that I'd made, and I began to think, wow, there was a great spark of life in all that, and why did I kind of close them off? And so the archive is about lots of home stuff I've done, also lots of collaborations with other artists that only appeared once off on an album, compilation album or something, and has gone by the wayside. Some live stuff, some remixes of stuff that I never felt I got quite right. And then there's a booklet with it, about 60 pages of memorabilia, which is lots of, articles, interviews, photographs, posters from the last 50 years,
I heard your mom had a lot of that stuff.
She did, yeah. My mother kept loads of scrapbooks, and it's amazing to see some of the stuff now, yeah. But I think if you're familiar with my music and you like it, well, I think this archive should give you a lot of fun, because it could, answer a lot of questions you might have had about who I was at what particular time, and if you don't know anything about me, there's a few tracks on it that certainly might grab your attention.
I need to go back to the topic of perfectionism, because listening to you talk about listening back to an old demo where at the time you're like, no one's going to want to hear this. That kind of sounds like a perfectionist monster taking over. Like, did that occur to you while you were going through the songs that could be included on the archive?
No, well, it was exactly the opposite. I put the perfectionists out to grass, and kept them outside.
How'd you do it, Paul?
Well, I grew a lot older. It happened rather than me doing it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so close to it that I can't really tell, but I mean, loads of people have come up to me saying that it's the perfect thing for me to do at this time in my career. There's 64 tracks on it, 4 CDs, no vinyl, folks, I know, but believe me, the CD's on its way back. You heard it from me first.
So, like you're saying, there are so many songs on this collection, and it features all the different types of music that you've played over the course of your career. It just seems like a massive undertaking to sequence this collection of music. So what was your approach in arranging the order of the songs?
Well, I suppose, there's 4 CDs, so I kind of felt each CD should start with a bit of a bang, so I kind of, some of the more sexier stuff, I suppose, I stuck at the start of the CDs, and then around about the middle of the CD, I'm going all kind of introspective, and by the end of the CD,
it's more esoteric as the CD goes on.
Yeah, and at the end of the CD, there's always a wee slap in the face, just in case you thought you figured it all out.
So this is actually not the first time you've looked back over your career. I was thinking of in 2001, you played all those shows at Vicar Street in Dublin with many special guests where you revisited much of your extensive catalog.
Yeah.
So in general, what do you enjoy about looking back? How does it help you in moving forward, and how does it help you stay in the present?
Well, it's kind of weird because back in 2001, I was getting Lifetime Achievement Awards, and I'm going,
hey guys,
here I am, 25 years later, still here, folks. So it's like, do you want me to move aside? No. So I think a large part of my best work was done in the noughties, and I'm very proud of all those albums I put out then. And I can't believe how long I've been in this business, and how I'm still kind of, enjoying it, big time.
All right, we'll do one more question and then a really quick lightning round. And guess what this question is about? That's right, it's about the Beast, which is what you call your onstage appearance. So I understand if you don't play shows for a while, it's kind of hard for you to sit down or even sit still. You love when you get to be on stage. Otherwise, you're just, quote, left feeling like Paul Brady.
Yeah.
How does the Beast help you when you're being Paul Brady? How do they overlap in a Venn diagram?
Well, it's not really an overlapping. It's a complete change of personality. I mean, I become inhabited by an alter ego or another person, or let's call it the Beast, and I almost just open myself up, and I don't know what's coming next half the time. I mean, I've never been I've played with loads of artists, and they go out on. I mean, I've opened for lots of artists in the past, and they go out on stage and they play the same thing every single night, almost to the note, And I'm the complete opposite of that. I don't even know what note I'm going to play next, and I blurt it out, and that's because in a way I've got out of the way of. I let this beast come through that seems to know more about me in a strange way than I know myself.
Oh, wow. Cool. All right, Paul, quick lightning round and then I'll let you go. So in thinking of growing up, what would your parents have brought to the neighborhood potluck?
I don't know what the neighborhood potluck means.
It's like everybody gets together for a big dinner and each person brings a dish, like a homemade dish.
Right.
What's the term for that in Ireland?
That doesn't
Not
happen.
Potluck?
That doesn't happen in Ireland.
Really?
No.
It's like a mishmash of dishes.
No, I don't relate to that. I don't understand that concept at all. You mean like a community that gets together and has a meal?
Yeah, like or just like a group of friends. You're having dinner and it's a potluck and everybody brings a dish and the host is like, I'm gonna make a I'm gonna make a roast, and then everybody brings side dishes.
Wow. Well, people didn't eat out or eat in other. When I grew up in the 50s in Ireland, people didn't go to dinner in other people's houses, you know. There was none of that.
This question is bombed.
I think so. Let's leave that one. Okay.
Yeah, I learned something, though. There's no potluck in Ireland.
No.
Okay, next question. What is your soundcheck song?
My soundtrack song at the moment is Harvest Time from an album called Unfinished Business. It came out around, I don't know, 2015 or something. Because it allows me to reach all parts of my voice in a short space of time. I mean, I've only started, I actually never, ever did warm-up exercises for my voice in my entire career until about a year ago. And wow. I lost my voice at a concert in Belfast, which wasn't to do with, you know, my voice per se. I had an infection which hit my voice, and I lost it for 10 days. And that kind of scared me. So it took me quite a while to feel like singing again. So since that's about a year and a half ago, I've started doing vocal exercise now. And I marry them up with finger exercises. I have one of these little hard balls that you squeeze to tighten the muscles in your hands. So I exercise my fingers and my voice at the same time.
Oh my gosh, hilarious. Okay, what is your favorite mythical creature?
Oh dear. A mermaid.
Nice. Okay, this is the last one. Where's the most beautiful place you've ever been?
Oh dear. Oh dear. I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
That one bombed too.
I'm afraid so.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, I appreciate talking to you. I had a blast getting ready for this interview and listening to all your music, and I had a lot of fun.
Good, thanks. Well, I enjoyed talking to you, Cindy, and I hope this recording of mine will wend its way to you without fault.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. This episode of Basic Folk was produced by Anthony Cabrera. Dietrich Strauss composes our music. Basic Folk is on the Bluegrass Situation Podcast Network. You can find all of our episodes there. You can check us out on folkalley.com or Folk Alley's mobile app. You can search for Basic Folk on the SiriusXM app. You can go to our website, basicfolk.com, or find us wherever you get your shows. If you enjoyed this episode, maybe you should share it with a friend, perhaps a friend that really enjoys that Magner's hard cider or a nice Guinness every once in a while and just really enjoys a good traditional Irish tune. Send it to that friend. All right, thanks for listening all the way to the end. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.